Hi, my name is Patrick Reagan. Welcome to the Security, where we discuss security with a focus on how it affects the computer and the services and resources that the computer connects to. In Part 6, Threats and Vulnerability defines threats, vulnerabilities, and risk and how they relate to each other. Part 1 will cover denial of service, distributed denial of service, zero-day attack, spoofing, and on-path attacks. For those who are going to take the A+ exam, there are practice questions at the end of the video. If you have not already, subscribe to the Pat Has Your Back channel. A threat is the potential for a threat agent to exploit a vulnerability. It is a very specific type of risk and is defined as an action or occurrence that could result in a breach in the security, outage, or corruption of a system by exploiting known or unknown vulnerabilities. Who or what can cause harm? In a broad sense, a threat is anything that can exploit a vulnerability and hinder the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of anything valuable. Threats can be either natural or human-made and accidental or deliberate. Some examples of threats include insider threats, hackers, vandals, thieves, malware including viruses and worms, phishing attacks, denial of service attacks, distributed denial of service attacks, ransomware, natural disaster, and computer failure. A vulnerability is a flaw or weakness in the asset's design, implementation, or operations and management that could be exploited by a threat. Decreasing system vulnerability reduces overall risk and can also limit the impact of threats on the system. How can harm occur? Sometimes a vulnerability can exist simply from an asset's implementation or deployment. Examples might include leaving a door open or unlocked, not changing the default password, bugs in software that have not been patched, not using anti-malware package, and system misconfiguration. A risk is the potential for loss when the threat happens. Once you know an asset's vulnerabilities and threats, you can determine how much risk is posed to the asset owner. This measures the combination of the likelihood that a threat exploits a vulnerability and the scale of harmful consequences. You then figure out how to mitigate those risks to an acceptable level. You want to reduce your risk to an acceptable cost-effective level. The threat exploits vulnerability that leads to risk, which is resolved by mitigation. Mitigation will affect the threat. Remember, you will never be able to eliminate risk. Since complete security can never be fully achieved, the focus of security is more often the process instead of the goal. Threats come in many different directions. The following threats are discussed in Threats and Vulnerabilities Part 1. Denial of Service or DOS, Distributed Denial of Service or DDoS, Zero-Day Attack, Spoofing, and On-Path Attack. The following threats are discussed in Threats and Vulnerability Part 2. Brute Force Attack, Dictionary Attack, Insider Threat, Structured Query Language or SQL Injection, and Cross-Site Scripting. Security Part 8, Social Engineering Attacks, will cover social engineering. Denial of Service, or DOS, is an attack which legitimate users are unable to access information systems, devices, or other network resources. Some denial of service attacks can be simple as turning off power, unplugging a cable, cutting a cable, or theft or destruction of computer or equipment. Even power outages or natural disasters can cause a denial of service. Other forms of attacks deny the ability to fix, including overriding firmware, deleting accounts, blocking administrative access, turning off and or disabling services, or changing DNS settings so that the server or service cannot be found. A misconfigured system can cause a denial of service. Radio frequency interference, where radio jamming interferes with local Wi-Fi wireless connections or other forms of communications. Theft of public identifiers, including hijacking a domain or hacking and taking over an online account such as Twitter, TikTok, or Facebook. Downloading large files or many files which consume essential network bandwidth that affect others. Popular flood attacks, including buffer overflow attacks, ICMP flood, and SYN flood. Historically, significant DOS attacks are Smurf attacks, ping flood, and ping of death. To protect against your denial of service is not a quick and easy solution. You'll need to make sure your system has the newest patches and using a reputable anti-malware package. Harden your computer system so that there's less opportunity for your system to be attacked. You need to adapt physical security to prevent easy access to system, resources, and related hardware. Make sure systems have redundancy built in. Monitor attacks and establish a DOS attack response plan. A special form of denial of service attack is distributed denial of service, or DDoS, where hackers or perpetrators overload the system by using multiple systems. It sends many requests to a server so that the server cannot keep up and use valuable system resources to process so that the server or service cannot handle legitimate requests. Some of these attacks may be caused by botnets, where hackers will compromise and infect many systems, which are used collectively to send packets to a target which overwhelm the target. Some botnets may number into the thousands or even millions. These systems may be called zombies because they have no idea that they're participating in a botnet or being used in an attack. To protect against a distributed denial of service, you need to use steps that you would use to protect against a denial of service attack. In addition, you need to filter out traffic patterns so that you can prevent traffic in reaching the system or services. Internet service providers and third-party technologies, such as Cloudflare, may help prevent or alleviate distributed denial of service. A zero-day attack is a type of cyber attack that exploits a security vulnerability in a software program that the software manufacturer does not know about. The term zero-day refers to the 0 days that the developer or organization has to come up with a solution once the flaw is discovered. A zero-day attack can begin with a software developer releases vulnerable code that is then exploited by a malicious actor. The attack can be successful, which may result in the attacker committing identity or information theft. The attack can also result in the developer creating a patch to limit its spread. Common vulnerabilities and exposures, or CVE, can be found at the cve.metri.org website. CVE is short for Common Vulnerabilities and Exposures, which is a database of publicly disclosed information security issues. To minimize the issues of vulnerabilities, you need to keep your software up to date with the newest version and security patches, have an up-to-date anti-malware package from a reputable company, and regular scan for vulnerabilities. In cybersecurity, spoofing occurs when fraudsters pretend to be someone or something else to win a person's trust. The motivation behind spoofing is usually to gain unauthorized access to systems, steal sensitive data, steal money, or spread malware. Email spoofing is the most widely used attacks. In email spoofing, the sender forges email headers to make it appear as if the message is from a trusted sender. Recipients often assume the forged sender is legitimate, especially if it's the name they recognize. Spoofed emails may request money transfers, system access, or contain attachments that install malware. Website spoofing is when scammers create fake websites that closely resemble legitimate ones so that the victims will unknowingly provide sensitive information, including a username and password or credit card information. Some of these fake websites may be fake bank sites or even Microsoft or Google login pages. While it looks like the real site, the user types in their username and password, which is automatically forwarded to the hacker. Often, these email spoofing and the website spoofing may be used together, as a person may receive an email that looks like it came from a specific person or company and has a link to a fake website for that person or company. Phone call spoofing is when fraudsters manipulate caller ID information to appear as a trusted entity. They may impersonate banks, government agencies, or other organizations to deceive victims. IP address spoofing involves altering the source IP address in network packets. It can be used to bypass access controls or launch attacks such as those found in distributed denial of service attacks. ARP spoofing involves manipulating the address resolution protocol, or ARP, to redirect network traffic. DNS spoofing is when attackers alter DNS records to redirect users to malicious websites. Remember to stay vigilant and verify the authenticity of communications to protect yourself from spoofing attempts. For example, look closely at the links and URLs to make sure it is the correct URL. Before clicking on links, move that mouse pointer over the link to see where the link really points to, and avoid clicking on any links that are shortened URLs that hide the destination link. You should even treat QR codes that are used to open links as suspicious, since you cannot see the links that the QR code points to. An on-path attacker, also known as the man-in-the-middle attack, places themselves between two devices, often a web browser and a web server, intercepting or modifying communications between them. These attackers can collect information and even impersonate either of the two agents. An on-path attack occurs when an attacker positions themselves on a known digital path, intercepting and manipulating online traffic. They wait for patterns in individual or system behavior and then intervene. HTTP connection hijacking is when an attacker sits between a user and the website they want to visit and intercepting the HTTP connection. By acting as a proxy, the attacker can collect and modify information exchanged between the user and the site. They might steal usernames and passwords during this process. Session hijacking is when an attacker steals a user's cookies, which are small pieces of data stored on a user's computer by a website. An attacker can hijack the user's session. This allows them to impersonate the user on the site. DNS attacks is when on-path attackers can compromise DNS servers. DNS lookup process translates domain names into IP addresses. In DNS spoofing or hijacking attacks, the attacker sends users to incorrect sites, often distributing malware or collecting sensitive information. Email hijacking is when attackers infiltrate email servers by positioning themselves between the server and the web. Once compromised, they monitor email communications. For instance, they might use spoofed email addresses to request money transfers, appearing legitimate to recipients. To protect against on-path attacks, keep your software up to date with the newest version and security patches, and have an up-to-date anti-malware package from a reputable company. One of the most fundamental ways to protect against attacks that target HTTP traffic is to adopt SSL/TLS, which creates secure connections between users and web services. Make sure digital certificates are validated. Use S/MIME to encrypt and digital sign emails with a unique digital certificate. Ensure email uses DMARC, SPF, and DKIM to ensure emails are validated. Use DNS security or DNSSEC. Use an intrusion detection and prevention system or IDPS. Use a VPN to encrypt the traffic over public networks. Educate users about the risk of public Wi-Fi networks and the importance of using VPNs when accessing sensitive information remotely. Question: You see that numerous computers from multiple geographic locations are sending a very high number of connection requests that is causing the web server to become overwhelmed. Which of this attack does this describe? Answer: distributed denial of service. Question: You've learned that an exploit is being used on software that your web server is running. However, a patch is not available. Which of the following attack could occur? Answer: 0 day. Question: with which of the following types is a man-in-the-middle attack associated? Answer: spoofing. Question: users notified that they receive an email from the help desk email address with this strange embedded link. What type of attack does this describe? Answer: spoofing. For more information, visit these sites. In summary, a threat is the potential for a threat agent to exploit a vulnerability. A vulnerability is a flaw or weakness in an asset's design, implementation, or operation management that can be exploited by a threat. A risk is the potential for loss when a threat happens. You will never be able to eliminate risk. Since complete security can never be fully achieved, the focus of security is more often the process instead of the goal. Denial of service, or DOS, is an attack which legitimate users are unable to access information systems, devices, or other network resources. A special form of denial of service attack is distributed denial of service, or DDoS, where hackers or perpetrators overload the system. A zero-day attack is a type of cyber attack that exploits a security vulnerability in a software program that the software manufacturer does not know about. In cybersecurity, spoofing occurs when fraudsters pretend to be someone or something else to win a person's trust. An on-path attacker, also known as the man-in-the-middle attack, places themselves between two devices, often a web browser and a web server, intercepting or modifying communications between them. Thank you for watching this video. The next video will be Security Part 7, Threats and Vulnerabilities Part 2. If you have not already, don't forget to subscribe to the Pat Has Your Back channel. Thank you.